Okay, so today I'm on the Zoom call to Holland. Jeroen Haamers of
Good
Batmobile
afternoon.
fame.
Good
Good
afternoon,
afternoon.
everyone.
Thank you very much for the for taking the time out to talk to me. So you're the second one in my Simon Nott Psychobilly Zoom series, hopefully first of many, where we're gonna find out about you and the early days of Batmobile and how you got into this racket.
Yeah,
So can we start from the beginning? I mean, what was your first interest in music?
well, it was quite early actually. I think my mom introduced me really to Elvis mainly. She made me watch Aloha from Hawaii in '73, and I got a little spark there, and I got a little interested in Elvis. So by the time he died in '77, I was quite a big fan. I was already buying all kind of records and bootlegs from Elvis. I was quite a collector at quite a young age. Um, and through Elvis, I discovered rockabilly. So through Elvis, I listened to Sun records, and through Sun, I discovered Johnny Cash and Carl Perkins and all the old artists. Um, so really early days, I was really mainly into well, Elvis is always been my main inspiration and still is until today. Um, I don't know what it is, but the energy of the guy and the charisma of the guy, in his just by himself, he could fill in a stage of 100 meters, you know. So it's so impressive to see that guy perform for me. So as a performer and as a singer, I'm hugely inspired by him. Um, but through the years, you discover new things. So I think when I was about 14 or 15, I first heard the Stray Cats. That was in 1980, I think, which was quite different approach of rockabilly that I knew. Then I wasn't aware that in England there was something like psychobilly coming up, and I didn't know the Cramps back then. So I think the Stray Cats were my first experience for more modern rockabilly. Um, Quite shortly after that, I met Johnny, so that would be early '80s, and he really taught me about the English stuff that was happening. My first love in the for in the English bands were I think the Blue Cats. They were really an explosion for me musically. You know, when I first listened to the first two Blue Cats albums, I was really blown away. You know, I like the Stray Cats and I like some of the songs, but I also thought, well, it's really American sounding. Um, it's really well produced, so it's almost like pop music with a double bass. So I was more into the old Sun records because the authenticity. Then I really love the Stray Cats, but when I listened to the Blue Cats and after that to Restless and to the Sharks and to the Deltas, I heard how the energy of like the early '50s was transposed to the early '80s. So you had the fierce energy of the early rockabilly, but then with some more punch from the punk area, I think. So that was my first experience with rockabilly together with Johnny, and we said to each other, we have to do this as well. We love rockabilly. We both loved. He more like was like into the Blue Cats, but also into the Meteors. I was more into the traditional and the old stuff, but I loved the Blue Cats as well, and I loved the Ricochets and the Deltas and the Sharks and all those early British bands. So the conclusion was we have to start a band. So that's what we did.
The guitar at this point, no?
Sorry.
But already playing the guitar at this point. When
Yeah,
did you learn the
yeah,
guitar?
yeah. Eric, my big brother and still bass player extraordinaire in Batmobile. He was playing the guitar when I was a kid. He's like 5.5 years older than me. So when I was 10, 11, 12, he was playing the guitar and he was playing in some bands as well. So that was really interesting for me. So he was my first tutor to pick up a guitar. So when I was 14, I started playing guitar. Eric taught me some chords, and I started just ramming some punk songs. I remember one of the first songs I ever did with some friends who were also like 14, 15 was Hound Dog. So that was, you could say that was kind of a psychobilly first steps into psychobilly because it was really punky versions of rock and roll songs. That was, we could play 3 chords and that was it. So and I loved Elvis. So 1 + 1. So after like 3 years of really shitty bands and just fucking around with friends and musically and looking for a way, I met Johnny, and well, that was love at first sight. I know he's ugly and I know he smells, but it was love at first sight musically. And finally I found someone who was really into rockabilly as well, because back in the day, like 1980, 81, in Holland, there wasn't a rockabilly scene. It was really small. You had a little scene in Eindhoven and you had a little scene in Amsterdam and some rockabillys in Rotterdam, but it was all in the big cities and it was all really, really small. And it was really divided as well. You had the Teddy Boys and you had some rockabillys. There wasn't really a psychobilly scene. So we are from a province town, so in our city there wasn't. Johnny and me were the rockabillys in our town. So it was good that we found each other, and in August '83, Batmobile was founded.
Okay, so you were Batmobile when you met, basically as soon as you met Johnny.
Yeah.
So, and there wasn't really a psychobilly scene, but Johnny was into it. So when did you sort of stop playing the punky rockabilly and start writing your own stuff and being?
Well, when I met Johnny, I said all my punk bands goodbye, and well, the first bands we really listened to closely were like the bands like the Blue Cats and Restless, and we hoped to get a sound something like that. So we both played in punk bands, but we were trying to find that rockabilly sound playing together. And it was quite hard because we didn't know where the clickety click sound came from. So we were only a drummer and a guitar player. And then my brother joined us and he said, well, we were searching for a bass player. And he said, well, I know a guy, he has a double bass, a double bass that suits rockabilly. So I will borrow a double bass and then we'll try to figure the sound out. So listening and trying, and then you didn't have internet, so you didn't have instructional videos or anything. We haven't seen any British bands yet, so we were really looking for how to create that sound. And then Eric suddenly pulled the strings and he said, I think this is what they do. This is the click. Oh yeah, that's the click. So it was really rudimentary, really, really, really basic, in search for how to sound like a rockabilly band. But after a few rehearsals, we started to get it a little bit. And however hard we tried, we never got to sound like Restless, or we never got to sound like the Blue Cats. But they were really
sound though, didn't you? You got your own sound, didn't you? So you just stumbled upon it, did you? I mean, because you sound like you, don't you?
Yeah. But I think when you put 3 musicians together and you try to be original, then your own sound comes forward anyway. So we didn't try to copy the Blue Cats and we didn't try to copy Restless or the Sharks, but we were inspired by them because we were inspired by the energy, and we were inspired by, it doesn't have to sound like a punk band to be very exciting and to be very energetic. So I think that was the lesson we learned from the early neo rockabilly or psychobilly bands, that they sound kind of clean but really energetic. When you listen to Take a Razor to Your Head, for instance, it's really clean. You just had Alan Wilson at the table. It's really clean, a really clean guitar sound, but it's packed with energy. You know, it's right in your face, and you want to smash things when you listen to it. So that was the energy that got us.
When did the scene sort of develop? When did you play your first gig where you saw kids with flat tops and bleached jeans and stuff turning up and start beating each other up on the dance floor?
Well, I think we started playing like 2 months after our first rehearsals. So that was mainly in bars, on school parties. So really try to form a band, you know, to get together as a band. So that was all for normal people, all for normies. So I think in 1984, well, we went to see Restless in Eindhoven together, and that was the first time we saw different kinds of rockabilly come together. There were Teddy Boys, there were rockabillys, and there were also a few crew cut guys. So that was the first. Well, the first time we saw that there really was an audience for this. So I think, you know, in '85 we made our first record, and then hell broke loose on all for shows, and we could play everywhere. We played all festivals, including the Clubfoot. But before that, I think there were local shows where you saw the audience being formed, just like we grew into it. The audience grew into it as well. And I remember a show early '84 where we played in a bar for like 12 or 13 people, and they were all sitting at the bar with their backs turned to us, and we just played Baby Let's Play House, and we played Stray Cat Strut and stuff like that, and Tainted Love, of course. We were so annoyed by the fact that those fucking horses' asses were turned with their backs to us, that we said, fuck them all, we play twice as fast and then we can fuck off here and go back home. But there were like 2 or 3 people that came with us that evening, and they said, fuck man, this is your sound. This is how you should sound. Play fast, play with energy, and then you'll be as good as the Meteors.
So you developed your own style almost by accident, and sort of growing up to get, you know, doing your own thing together.
Yeah.
Tell us about your first recording sessions.
Well, I think we did a few demos before we did our first album. So the first demo was in a garage of a friend of ours, and he had quite a good stuff. We released a few of those demos as well, Little Pig and Sweet Love on My Mind. And we recorded a few of those kind of songs that we didn't release, by the way. I believe Great Balls of Fire, a red Cadillac and a black mustache, something like that. So I think that was the first time ever we recorded. So it's late '83, early '84. Then we started to write more of our own material, and we did a good demo in a decent studio where we did, I believe, Slap and Suspenders and Killer's Crew, Bring All My Love, a few songs like that. And then we were invited to play the Psychobilly Festival in Rotterdam, which was done by Rockhouse, British Rockhouse from Rockhouse Records. And he signed us there. He said, I want you guys playing here. So if I want you guys recording an album. So that was it. You know, it all went very fast. That first year, it all went, you know, it was one thing after another. So it really went fast.
So when you went in to record those early stuff, the Rockhouse stuff, was it, you know, sort of like I imagine you all do it now, where it's all layered? Or did you just go in there and blast it out and it was pretty much live? Did you? How did the process work?
It was really shitty, actually. We had 2 days in the studio for Rockhouse for our first album. So day one, Eric got a cramp. He couldn't play. So we were shooting pool at the studio and it was costing like £1,000 a day. We were shooting pool and fucking away our time there. So, and the Rockhouse said, tomorrow is mixing day. So tonight you have to record all tracks. So we started to, Eric got a little loose after pooling and after a few beers. And we just played everything, 7 songs, one after each after another. And the Rockhouse recorded it, mixed it the next day, and ready it was. And we didn't have any say in sound or whatever. We told Bertus Rockhouse, we really want to sound like the Blue Cats. And he said, you never sound like the Blue Cats, you sound like Batmobile. That was cool, but he made the sound of the first album. He made the big drum sound. He made the bass sound really fierce. I think it was really, really cool bass sound. Eric played with steel strings, and you can still hear that. It's really loud clicking sound. And I think, in hindsight, he did a very good job in 2 days recording that album.
You said that when that album came out, it all hell let loose.
Yeah.
So it was very popular. And then did the scene sort of grow with the album? Was that one of the first? Well, were you the first sort of Dutch band doing that sort of thing?
Well, you had Archie. I don't know if you know Archie. There was a Dutch band from Holland, and they were on a compilation album from Rockhouse as well. And they did a mini album, but I think that was just after us. But they were around as well. I think, and Archie was a real good band as well. But when they recorded their first stuff, they already split up after that. And we felt that this scene really had potential to have a lot of fun, and but I think back in the day we were sort of the only band in Holland that did this, because Archie, they did new rockabilly, but I think our sound was a little different, was a little tougher and a little more edgy, and it was. I couldn't believe the reception. It was really well accepted everywhere. So,
and you seemed like you were very sort of professional with it as well. Did you sort of think, right, this is really taken off, we can be a successful band, or were you just still worried about having fun?
Well, we're the 3 of us, so I think we're all in it a bit differently. I think I was always quite serious about gigging. I never understood. I love Chuck. We just talked about Chuck a little, but I never understood bands that were totally wasted on stage or take a dump on stage or anything. From a very young age, I thought people are here to see a band perform at their best. They pay money to see me, so let's try and do my best, because I'm not the best guitar player in the world. I'm not the best singer in the world. We're not the best band in the world. So please, let's try and do our best. But we all also have other people in the band, and the boys always, they were more like, of course we want to do a good show, but we also want to have fun, and they want to have a drinks and have a little party afterwards, and I was always the boring one who wants to go to bed early, because next day we had the show again, and I didn't want to lose my voice. So maybe I was the boring one, but I think also it led to the longevity of Batmobile as well, because now we're all on the same page for that. Where we all want to try to survive the show. We wanted to have a good show still, and still try to achieve that energy that we think is necessary for our music.
Okay, you say survive the show. I was never at any of those mid-80s massive gigs that you see photographs of.
Yeah.
I mean, what were those gigs like? It looks like it was organized chaos.
It was, but that was the fantastic thing of it, because everyone who was there, like in the club food or in the Markthalle in Germany, in Hamburg, or in Berlin, or in there was a fantastic festival in Bremen as well. That was a little later, but a few thousand of psychobillies that were totally went wild, and it wasn't organized. It wasn't organized. It was chaos, but it was fantastic because everyone felt this is something special. We are something new. We're different from anything that was. Um, so it had the potential to be a fantastic and a really big scene as well, I think. But there are a lot of people that fucked that up. But but that is also the charm, I think. The charming thing about psychobilly, that is still one of the few really, really subcultural scenes, I think.
I mean, look, people looking from the outside in that haven't been in a wrecking pit or whatever, it's hard to, they find it hard to understand how people can just go out there and knock the shit out of each other.
Yeah.
There's never really any violence or any,
No.
there was nothing ever really sinister sort of undertones in those days.
Well, the only undertone there was, and that was quite early in our careers as well, was the Wrecking Crew, the Cattle and the Wrecking Crew. And Johnny was a big Meteors fan, and he tried to convince me that it was a fantastic band. And I was never a big believer, but anyway. But there has been animosity from their fans to fans from other bands, and I think that's one of the main reasons that held the scene back. It was the aggression between one group and another, and not standing together. So for me, that's a really big missed opportunity, if you can call it like that. So that was quite a sinister and aggressive undertone, which sometimes led to fighting and stabbings. I remember we always had a few quite big guys with us at shows, and one of my old mates, I saw him beat up 4 of the Wrecking Crew guys in Germany once because I wanted to knife him because he had a Batmobile shirt on. But well, stuff like that happened, and that was shit.
Okay, we'll move on to the. So you were the first non-UK band to play clubfoot.
Yep.
I know I did the notes, but tell us how it was.
Well, shortly after our first album, the telephone started ringing, and our first show abroad was in Germany, in Hamburg, just after the release of the show, and our second was in the Clubfoot in London, late '85. And I remember walking on King's Road. I was 19, so I was really young and unexperienced and didn't know anything about the world. It was my first time in England. And there were like 2 really, really tall psychobilly guys. I thought, well, they're cool. And they came to me and said, "Fuck, you're Batmobile." And that was my first autograph I ever said on someone's arm. So I thought, wow, this is, well, I'm in a country where it all happened. I'm in a country where it was invented, and I'm walking here on King's Road looking for a pair of 501s and Doc Martens, and I'm being recognized here. So that was, for me, it was mind blowing. And the club food was amazing back then. It was really, really, really the place that had a fucking big buzz. I don't know the capacity, but it was really a lot of people, always packed. People hanging over the stage because there were too many people packed in the house. Downstairs there was a bar where we all went drinking snake bites, I believe. It was fantastic. Well, and the great thing about the club food was it wasn't only psychobilly with bleach trousers and flat tops. You had all different kinds of colors and people. They all loved psychobilly, they all loved rockabilly, but it was quite different all. And Tallboys played there as well, and the Stingrays played as well. So it wasn't just really narrow. It wasn't just tickety tickety tick. It was. I think back then quite an open scene, and I think we lost that in our ways. I think in during the years. I think maybe in Pineda they tried to create that a little bit again, by booking some other stuff, some other bands from different scenes next to psychobillies, but it's hard. I think it's been quite a closed and well, I don't want to say narrow-minded, but I say that because I'm not English, so sometimes have to I have to look for words, but it's a bit small. And it was an opener scene, like in '85 and '86.
Okay, no, we'll go, but don't want to go too negative again. But one negative thing that happened to you that must have been quite disappointing was you needed to go to court because you didn't get paid for your record.
Yeah.
Then you were like business-like guys. I mean, you actually teenagers or early 20s to take a record company to court must have been something.
Yeah, and we tried to get help from Crazy Kevin and the Blue Cats because they didn't get paid enough or anything as well. We took Rockhouse to court. I think it was in '87, something like that. Just after we set up our own record company, and we won. So they paid us quite a good amount of money, but not nearly the money that they owed us. But they said, like, we owe you 10,000 guilders, so here is the money. So we got that. But we know for a fact that first album sold really, really, really well. Because after like 20 years, we talked to one of their associates, and they said only in Poland and Russia, we sold more than 100,000 copies of that album. And then we sold worldwide. So maybe they sold like 150,000 copies or more. And we only got, well, a tip, But after that, well, we had, I think with the court stuff, we had closure. That's how you call it. We put it behind us. And we were also able to see what Rockhouse has brought us, because I'm still very happy that we recorded that first album with them, because they had a massive distribution network, and well, the album was sold everywhere. So we also have a lot of stuff to thank him about, but he was a fucking bastard.
Talking about, I mean, you were very successful. Any band that can sell 100,000 records or more. Was it ever being like a pop star in your head? Would you have liked to have maybe become really commercial and ended up on the on the charts, that sort of thing? Did you ever sort of look back and think, oh, maybe if I just tamed it down a bit, we could have been living in a mansion somewhere?
I live in quite a good mansion. Now, I think for us, it was always the main thing to play the music that we really enjoyed ourselves. And there were a few moments that we got interest from bigger labels, but there were always like these clauses that you have to listen to their A&R manager and listen to these and listen to that. And we're Dutch, and Dutch are stubborn. I think we're like Scottish people or something. So we don't have much patience, and when we think it has to be done that way, well, we don't do it that way. No, we do it that way. So I think it's good. It's good that we did it like we did it. I think the scene could have been bigger. That's what I think.
Yeah.
I think the scene, because there were quite a good, fantastic bands at the start, but most fantastic bands, they broke up. They changed their style. They caused fights. They caused shit. They wrecked hotel rooms. They caused violence. I think if that had been toned down a little bit, people didn't see us as, oh, that's funny. No, people were afraid of psychobillies, and I think psychobillies enjoyed that people were afraid of them. So when people are afraid of you, you will never be accepted by a bigger audience.
Did you during that peak in the sort of the late sort of 80s? Was when there's massive characters around, massive gigs? Is there anything particular that sort of sticks in your mind for good or bad reasons from those days that you sort of look back on and chuckle like you're chuckling now?
Well, there is something like an honor that you whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Whatever happens on the psychobilly backstage stays in psychobilly backstage. I've seen a lot of shit, and I've seen a lot of funny things, and even with my own bandmates, we've gone through really, really, really funny things, and also stupid things, and drugs and alcohol and fights and all that. We've experienced it all. But when you think of characters and egos, I think there are quite a few in the scene. But when I think, did I ever really inspired? How do you say it? Did I ever want to be a real rock star? No, thanks. Because I love making music, and I love being on the road with my mates, because that's the best thing ever. Just get in the car, make stupid jokes, drive 1,000 miles and play your thing and enjoy people there. That's one of the most exhilarating things in my life that ever happened. So that's the best thing. But I remember first time that we went to Japan, it was in 91. We couldn't go walking down the streets because we had bodyguards to keep the fans away. We had like girls handing us towels, handing us everything. So that was, I think, for a little while, just a little bit, an experience is how it is to be a rock star. And I didn't like it one bit. I like to get my own drinks, and I like to just go walking around the streets whenever I want to. So on one hand, I would think the scene could have been a little bigger, and if the scene had been a little bigger, we might have earned a little bit more money, so we didn't have to work another job, and we could have lived decently off of music. But on the other hand, being famous, that's not something you want to be.
Did you never? Sorry.
No, it's not something I want to be.
Did you never work full time as Batmobile then? Was there never a period in that time where you didn't do anything else?
Yeah, it was. I think I started working in 94. So from 83 to 94, I've lived off Batmobile. So it was good. It was fantastic. But I also want to have a family. I have 4 kids now. And as long as we were together with 2 of us, Batmobile was enough. But when you want to buy a house or see your kids grow up, you have to have a little bit more money. So and that's the stupid thing. In all kinds of scenes, like in hard rock or in punk or in metal, when you take a little step forwards, you can ask like 10, 20, 30,000 pounds for a show, and then you can live good from your music. But in psychobilly there was like this ceiling. You never could take that step. So even when we played big festivals, they never pay us as much like well, any punk band. And I think we're at least as good, and we are at least as energetic, and it's at least as much fun as the Addicts or Toy Dolls or any other band. You know, I'm not afraid to play after them one day or whenever. You know, so I think the good psychobilly bands could have been, well, could have been a little bit better, but I think it's also. There were a lot of changes in lineups, and there were a lot of bands that didn't take the music and themselves a little bit seriously. So I think that's somewhat of a missed opportunity, but it's also the attraction, I think, of the scene. So it's difficult. It's difficult to point what could have been. I think it's great as it is, but it could have been a little bit different, I think.
Okay, and finally, Jeroen, you're still playing with Batmobile occasionally.
Yep.
You still love it as much as you did at Clubfoot in 1986?
I think I'd love it more now. I think I'd love it more because there's no need to prove anything. And sometimes we're challenged, but we're not challenged very oftenly. But sometimes we're challenged, and we have to play before a band that I think of, well, that's fucking good. We have to really push. But I think our shows are always good, are always still energetic. And even though we're all old, we're old guys. Johnny is 60, 61. Eric is 65 now, and I'm 59. So, we're kind of an old geezer band. But I think we're still quite energetic, and because we've seen it all, and we had it all, and it's just fantastic to do. It's really the best thing ever.
Brilliant. Well, on that note, Jeroen Haamers, thank you very much.
Bye. See you next time.